It was at Sun Studios. Sam Phillips had started the label. When I was over there that night, I think Scotty and Bill had just left. And Elvis was getting ready to leave, and I walked in, and Sam introduced me to him. And we sat and talked a few minutes, and Elvis said to me, he said, are you coming back? I said, yeah, I guess so. Why? He said, come on back over. He said, I'll be over here again tomorrow night. And so I went over again the next night. And one thing led to the other. It was just a case where I liked him, he liked me. We would touch base in 55 and 56, and we'd get together. And when he moved over to Audubon Drive, I went over there. I was over there a lot. And so, I mean, we were in and out of each other's lives for about 2 years before I went with him. So that's how that really came about.
My name is Jerry Schilling. I met Elvis in 1954 at the age of 12 years old. I went to the local park one day. It's called Dave Wells Community Center. I went there this Sunday, and there were 5 older boys, like high school. I was in grade school, trying to get up a 6th player to play football. And one of the older guys was a friend of my older brother's, Red West. And he said, Jerry, do you want to play with us? We went in the huddle, and I saw this guy. It was Elvis Presley. That was it for me. Changed my whole life. I wanted to be like him. He was lovable, he was dangerous, everything a young kid would admire. I remember going home, saying a little prayer that night, saying, gosh, a real prayer, saying, I really wish he would be my friend.
Well, I met him in 1958, just before he was getting ready to go to Germany. He was in the Army, and he had private roller skating parties at Rainbow Skating Rink, and my cousin had grown up with him in school and knew him well, so he invited me and my sisters to come out and meet Elvis, and I did. So I met him out there, and we hit it off pretty good. And he told Red to tell me to look him up when he came back from Germany, to come out and say hi. So I went about my business. He went over there for a year and a half, and I just did my job and grew up more here in Memphis. And then when he came home, I went out to say hi to him, and a couple of weeks later, I started to work for him. I gave a 2-week notice where I was working. Said, I'm off with Elvis, man, to make movies. Guy said, well, good luck. So that was it.
My name is Joe Esposito. I met Elvis in 1959, and I was 21 years old at the time. I got drafted in the Army same time Elvis did. Combat Command C was the name of the base. And I was there for about 30 days. Then we heard the rumor that Elvis was coming to our base. So one night I was working late in the office with my friend George DiDomizio and my partner. I was a finance clerk for the Army. I lucked out. And we see all these people starting to gather up around outside the gates of the camp. And I asked George, what's going on? He says, well, we heard Elvis is coming to our base tonight. And all of a sudden, about 8 o'clock at night, buses come in with all these troops, and kids are screaming and yelling. Elvis was on the bus somewhere. You couldn't see him because everybody's dressed like GIs, and it was dark at night, but they all stood out there for hours and hours and screamed and yelled. And I saw him around the base at different times. I never got to know him because he was in tanks and I was in artillery. And he'd come in off base because he was living off base. He had a house for his dad and for his grandmother. And he would come speeding in real quick, running late, and you see him drive by the barracks. And that's the only reason I used to see him once in a while. While I was there, I met this gentleman while I was in Germany. His name was West Daniels. He was a photographer for the Army. He was in the Army too, and he was assigned to take pictures of Elvis for promotional, for PR for the Army. Elvis and a bunch of his Army buddies plays football on the weekends near his house. And West Daniels asked me one day, so we need some more players. Would you like to go play football and meet Elvis? I said, I would love to. And that's how it all started. I went to his house in Bad Nauheim, and I was introduced to him at that time. Yes, after that day, after we played a little football and went over his house and visited a little bit, he invited me to come over anytime on the weekends, just hung out with him a lot of times.
Well, you know, I know that we weren't close. It was a small school. We knew each other. Elvis was always different. as he made more progress later on in the music industry, he had to be different. Well, he was the same way in high school, but nobody knew who Elvis was then, you know. I just knew him casually, and I happened to walk in the bathroom one day, and you know, the bullies, there's three guys, two were holding him, and they were gonna cut his hair.
Yeah.
Because we all had crew cuts, and his hair was back, you know, long.
Yeah.
And we're just going to cut his hair, and I happened to walk in. And I said, "What's going on?" He said, "Oh, we're going to give him a haircut." I said, "Doesn't look like he wants the haircut." No, well, we're not going to hurt him.
Yeah.
I said, "No. If you cut his hair, you're going to cut my hair." And I had a crew cut, and I said, "I don't think you can do that." And they saw I was serious, and they backed off. And that was it. You know,
That was really the bonding of you and Elvis.
Yeah.
He never forgot that.
No, I know he didn't.
Elvis was a bit of a loner back then. He had maybe 3 or 4 friends that lived in the same housing project he did, and primarily was shy, did not really come out of his shell until a couple of talent shows, and the girls started screaming him. I mean, he always liked girls. I mean, I think he had more girlfriends than he had guy friends. My name is Marty Lacker, and I first went to work for Elvis when I was 24. Each of us had a responsibility, things to do to make it possible for Elvis to do what he needed to do. And it was almost an unsaid responsibility. I mean, people didn't have to be told, well, you have to do this today. That didn't need to be done. Everybody knew what they had to do so that he could be happy and live his own life.